Poland, October 1939. At least, he thought he was still there, somewhere in Poland. How long he had been here, he wondered. It felt like an eternity. The damp darkness of this basement chamber betrayed no sign of day or night. Once he had been human, that he remembered. But memories of that were quickly fading away with each painful torture. With each psychological attack and each new excruciating test, he was slipping away from being whatever his name was. He couldn't seem to remember. He was only Svinya now. His beautiful Russian tormentor lovingly stroked his cheek. "I'm so sorry, Svinya." Somehow he believed her, even though he knew this was part of the psychological attack, that he should feel empathy for the one who was torturing him. But she had been saying she was sorry from the first moment that he was abducted. He was taken from the German zone secretly and brought here. She'd been saying she was sorry a lot, and he believed her. "But I know nothing," he muttered. It was true, of course. He was only a deliverer of secret suitcases, SS, a good soldier, a good Nazi. He never once peeked inside. "I didn't ask you what you know," she whispered. That was also true, of course. Since the day of his arrival in this place, she had only expressed sorrow at his condition, sorrow at what she had to do. She kept asking only that he give himself to her completely. "I am so sorry," she whispered again, as she shoved something against his skin. Too low to be seen, the unknown object burned slowly into his flesh. The smell of his own burning humanity, what was left of it, filled his nostrils, and he screamed. And then he blacked out. He'd been doing that a lot lately, too. When he awoke, he was laying flat on a wooden bench of some sort, affixed around his lower legs, arms, and torso with what felt like rubber straps. They were actually not very tight. Instinctively, he moved. Insidiously, the small metal barbs he hadn't previously felt tore into his skin. He moaned in agony and quickly stayed perfectly still. "I'm so sorry, Svinya," came her voice again. Good God, he still believed her. In his heart, he was torturing himself over putting this lovely woman through this agony. She was just following orders, after all. He would have done the same. Had he known anything of any importance, he definitely would have told her, and that realization frightened him. She stepped into sight, and he was stunned to see her completely nude. He was even more shocked at his biological reaction under the circumstances. She straddled the bench and slowly lowered herself onto him. "I'm so sorry, Svinya," she went on with tears in her beautiful blue eyes. "But give yourself to me completely." She stopped herself partway down. Instinctively, irresistibly, he moved. He screamed from the barbs digging into his skin and abruptly stopped. There he lay in this cruel torment, trapped between pain and pleasure and the horrific choice between them. "I love you," he heard himself say to her through gasping breath. "I give myself to you." Her hand suddenly triggered something along the edge of the bench out of sight, and with a snap and a final scratching pain, the rubber straps snapped away, taking their metal barbs with them. She rested her body now completely on him. The pleasure overwhelmed him. Only a moment, it seemed. A moment went by before there was a loud noise. The door to the chamber was kicked open. Gunshots rang and bullets flew around the room. One of them struck her. In an instant, her brain splattered across his face as her head split open. He screamed. Two men in SS uniforms sped by him and began examining the chamber, looking for any secrets this place held. A woman, also in SS uniform, pushed his now mostly headless beloved off him and onto the floor. "You've come to rescue me," he said. "Thank God you've come." Weak and overwhelmed, he did not protest as she circled about him. Before he could protest why, the rubber straps had been put back into place around his legs, arms, and torso. "You've come to rescue me," he declared again, as if to convince her or himself. She paused to stroke his cheek lovingly. "I'm so sorry, Schwein," she whispered, "but you have to give yourself to me completely." The horrific realization struck him. He knew nothing. He never had known anything. The Soviets couldn't be sure of that until they broke him. Now, his own people couldn't trust that he hadn't talked until they broke him. He wasn't being rescued. He wasn't going anywhere.